So welcome back to the Gyms podcast. We've got another episode with one of our Gyms Building Inspections franchisees, which is Peter. Now, Peter was the National Franchisee of the Year for Australia and New Zealand. I'm going to say Southern Hemisphere because Gyms Building Inspections is the biggest in the Southern Hemisphere. So well done, Peter, on that. Now, why did you win that award, or why do you think you got it?
Oh, nothing money can't buy, my friend.
Nothing money can buy.
So, little money in the bag on the side, never went astray.
Obviously, again, it's a massive division. So nearly at 200 franchisees. So that's pretty amazing achievement to get that.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
Yeah.
It's good, pretty proud of it.
Why do you think you got it?
Well, I suppose it comes down to consistency. Not consistency in just your role, but consistency in assisting other franchisees, franchisees being able to come to you, just basically being humane about what you do and having the ability to do that.
You obviously help a lot of people, because I think it's the beauty of gyms which people don't get sometimes. They think all the franchisees would be competing with each other, but as you know, you probably give so much knowledge and advice to franchisees on a daily basis to help them in their business.
So there is an element of competition in one sense, because at the end of the day, we are our individual franchisee owners. In saying that, the beauty about the group is that you still take the time out to assist your fellow inspectors to maintain a certain standard within the brand, to be able to provide a consistent service across the board.
Awesome. Now, before gyms, what were you doing?
I was a builder beforehand. So originally came from a cabinet making background. So qualified cabinet maker, then went into shop fitting, and then subsequently went into building construction. And in all those instances, had my own company as the primary contract holder in any contract that came through. And then as a result of that, you burn yourself out a little bit over time. You're always constantly looking at the weather, worrying about what you guys are doing, things like that. So took a bit of a step back in the break, and then decided to go into building inspections.
But you weren't just any old builder, from what I hear. You had a Home of the Year. You've been on TV. So let's pump yourself up a bit, don't you?
Yeah. So and I was fortunate enough to have a really good client base. Ones that wanted a top quality product, and that's usually where the shortfalls are in the industry.
Right.
Whereas I was extremely fortunate to be able to have a database that wanted a top quality product, and we're happy to pay for it. And that's probably where it falls apart, where it didn't in this instance, which gave me the ability to provide a really good product, which then in turn turned into winning Home of the Year in Australia. For one project, won Apartment of the Year in a 3-story walk-up block that I built.
Wow.
Another one was a commercial property, which we won, which was quite a detailed project, which is really cool. So get quite a vast variety of projects, be able to come through and win some awards along the way is always it's always rewarding. Which
is amazing. Like, once again, clients don't realise sometimes the experience that the franchisees have in the background. So when they engage someone and you're rocking up Home of the Year and Apartment of the Year, all these awards, it's fantastic that clients have this available as a franchisee.
It's good. It gives you a bit of background as to sort of what the criteria is. It's nice.
And just want to point that out for people, that the expertise of the guys and girls you get rocking up is amazing. And so then, being a builder, just before we go on to anything, challenging industry, right? And you had a building business, right? So what are the challenges now around that industry that maybe people should be aware of?
The challenges are, I suppose the economy drives that, because when the economy is asking for a quality product, but yet the consumers aren't paying for it, and then the builders are fighting for position, the biggest shortfall is going to be the construction methods that are used. And that's what I suppose the standards are for, and the standards are a minimum standard, right? And a lot of builders aren't even achieving that. So I think that's probably the biggest shortfall in the whole process is the demand to the price to the product, and there's a bit that's disjointed in itself.
Yeah. And just making it more important now, people just have to get you guys involved, because it's just what's happening. Yeah. And then how did you get involved? Well, why did you then look at Gyms Building Inspections, as you said before, a little bit burnt out doing your business, so then you're probably looking for something different?
Yeah, I was probably at the crossroads, not knowing where to go, what to do. Just sort of had enough about building. But one of my very best friends goes, such and such is in the gyms group doing building inspections, and my reply was, what does he know? Right? And I said to myself, well, if he can do it, anyone can do it. So I gave it a crack, rang up Sammy, had a 2-minute phone call, and before you know it, here we are.
Quick as that. So you would have, what was it about the gyms group that you liked the sounds of? Was it just more you had someone you know who was doing okay, and you thought, I can do that as well?
Well, it wasn't a matter of doing okay. Right. This particular individual was quite meticulous in the way that the type of company or organisation they would deal with.
Right.
And I know that if they can get through his criteria, my bar wasn't as high as what his was, so I figured I'd be going all right.
And the training, do you remember back to the training experience? How did you go with that?
It was terrible.
It was terrible.
It was terrible. I was a COVID baby.
Oh, you did the online one. Right.
You know, you talk about mentoring, you talk about, picking up the phone. I had none of it, right? So, which is probably why you go back to, which is probably why when you go back to, why would you win Franchisee of the Year? Because unfortunately, I never had that experience, right? So then here we are going into franchise, and you see other franchisees come through, and you don't want them to have what I had, and it was circumstantial.
Yep.
It wasn't by the group.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's the way society was at that time. It was very disconnected to the rest of the world. You weren't able to reach out and be in person with people, so you are sort of. It was a trying time.
Yeah.
But in saying that, to try and start something like an inspection business in that era without that support, then you would have been in strife.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because we did have the training online for a period of time, which we just had to do it. And hearing that completely understand, because I used to do some of the online, we had to run the online training. We knew how hard it was from us. So yeah, completely
worked on it a little bit more, I tell you.
Completely relate to you. Now let's talk about your business in particular, right? So services we're going to start with. So let's talk about services. What do you find yourself doing mostly in your business at the moment?
Well, look, your bread and butter is always your pre-purchase stuff, right? Yep. But what I find is that as franchisees, you tend to always go back to what you know best. So if you're as an ex-builder, you're going to look at structures, you're going to look at finishes, you're going to look at water ingress, you're going to do stuff like that. So, but the pre-purchase, like I said, is your go-to. All right, but from there you'll segue into your specialised field. So then you start rolling into consultancy, start rolling into client-side project management. You might start rolling into advising builders on how to do specific details in what you might do. So yeah, bread and butter, building pest every day of the week. And there's some other services that I want to talk about because you've been fantastic to me. Peter just gave me some notes here, which is great because I'm not an expert in this industry and I want to get some notes, and I think this is really handy because I haven't covered this before with other franchisees. So apartment inspections. Yeah.
So I haven't talked about that before. People might buy an apartment and go, why do I need an inspection? So can you just talk about the need for that?
Yeah, I think there's quite a gap between the knowledge as to why, or the assumption, public perception around why you should actually carry out an inspection on an apartment or in a strata complex per se, regardless what type of building it is. There's a strata report out there which gives you sort of the semi-condition of a building where you might find where they collate high HIPAA documents, but then you go in and do an inspection on a particular apartment. You could have water ingress from your shower recess leaking into someone else's property. You could be going into neighbouring rooms. You could have cavity flashing issues on the ground floor. You can still have rising deb. You can still have leaking from another tenancy into yours. There are so many factors. It's still a building. It's still sitting on the ground. You still might be elevated in some areas. Balconies can still leak. Windows still leak. Cavities being breached. You still have water ingress, still get mould. So all these building factors that come into play still happen in a strata complex.
Yep.
In saying that, so that's the inspection on the individual tenancy. As a building inspector, like I said earlier, there are minimum standards that you would work to, and the building inspections is no different. So when you're doing an inspection on an individual tenancy, you still want to have a look at the block. The block might have concrete cancer, might have roofing issues, might have a structural issue, might have subsidence of retaining walls, driveways that are cracked up. And when you're sitting in a 6, 10, 12, 18 unit tenancy, that's a lot of money that has to be rectified in that building, of which you're going to have to pay your fair share. So drawing a dotted line between a strata report and a building inspection report in that environment, I believe, is extremely important.
You mentioned something I just want to ask about real quickly. Concrete cancer.
Yeah.
What is concrete cancer?
Oh, look, it's actually concrete spalling.
Right.
But the common word's called concrete cancer, and that's when the steel within the concrete begins to erode when it's too close to the edge of a surface. Then when it expands, it pushes the concrete out and then breaks down. And then obviously decreases the structural integrity of that structure, which can be quite expensive. As a builder, I had a remedial division that did strata work, and geez, we made some good money out of it, which, you know, now on the reverse side of it, you want to advise people and go, well, look, you've got X amount of dollars sitting here, you've got 6 units in this block, you're up for your portion.
Because I think people buy an apartment and they just don't think about building inspection at all. I just think it's one of those things where the consumer just thinks, oh, it's going to be okay, as you said before. So you mentioned some of the issues that can go wrong with it, but I don't think about them obviously being up for repairs.
Well, the mentality is this, right? A selling agent will come through the door, they go, oh, don't worry, let Strata will sort that out.
Yeah.
That's not your problem, Strata will sort that out. But you're still paying your share. So that statement isn't really true to...
Yeah, because I think people just assume that, right? So that's great to hear that from your side, because they will have to pay for it.
Yeah.
And that could be quite expensive with some of these things as well.
I will get individuals sending me a strata report. They'll have proposed works that are being carried out. Sinking fund's got no money. Not that it's our role to look at sinking funds and things like that, right? But it's their role. Once they know that there's a defect and they know there's works coming up, it gives them now the opportunity to turn on that light bulb and go, well, I better go see what that's going to cost, and are there funds available, and they can go after their specialist advice as to whether this is a viable option or not, because it's not our role to advise that, right?
Because I think a lot of younger people buying apartments would not even think about this sort of stuff. They're excited to get into whatever they can get into, and then this is something where they probably don't take into consideration at all.
And that's the thing, right? I mean, in a lot of states, I mean, an apartment, you could be looking at $1 million plus, right? Depending on what state you're in. So what, is $1 million in an apartment no different to $1 million in a house?
Yeah. Absolutely. No, it's a great point. I think apartment inspections, hopefully we see an increase in that with people using your service, because I think that awareness around that is something that needs to, I just think people just don't think of that at all. And so, and you mentioned common areas as well. So what about the common areas in that?
So the interesting part that we do need to be a little bit careful there, because the report style and the agreements that we have are specific to the tenancies, right? You can get inspections to carry out on the whole block, but that gets quite costly.
Right.
So it's all about, putting things in the report that are for your information, that to just, maybe point out with no description, to say, well, just a photo, which gives us then the ability to discuss where those items and defects may be in that particular scenario, for them to be able to further investigate it. It's all about advising.
Now, talking about apartments, you mentioned to me as well, which I didn't know you guys could do, is the consultancy for builders and developers.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk about that from your side?
Oh, well, look, the interesting part is, when I was talking sort of about pre-purchase, but when you've got handover inspections, which is a new construction service, and you're going into an apartment to do a handover to check the defects and how they compare to the Australian standards. There's been instances where I've gone in to do a handover inspection on the block, and there will be incorrect falls in bathrooms, no water stops in the right places, shower screens aren't true to the style of bathroom that's been installed, and then all of a sudden people are pulling out because the construction of those tenancies are incorrect. Once you're looking at the inside and you start going to the outside, you start looking at the construction as a whole. And in one particular case, there was a developer that employed a builder to carry out that construction site, and my client ended up not purchasing this particular tenancy, and this developer now employs me to keep the builder true during the construction period. And on other projects, they will also engage me to come in and consult on certain details in certain environments, because when you're building boundary to boundary, you can come up against a few different types of details that you need to stop water from ingressing. So then from going and inspecting a property, whatever form it is in, on a new construction view, it can roll into other services from consulting and client-side project management to ensure that the construction is being carried out in accordance with the code and contractual documents.
Yeah, that's a great one. When you told me that, I didn't really know about that, and then, I thought that was really, really interesting. And then project management and things like that. That's great to know that you guys can do that as well. Another service here, which you want to talk about, we'll go back to the other services as well, is expert witness. So do you want to talk about expert witness?
No. So
next one.
Expert witness reporting. So, look, the good thing about expert witness reporting, it's clinical, right? It's all about the minimum standard. And no one ever comes to you in that kind of a scenario without being dire straits. Somebody's either being sued one way or the other, not getting their money, or the construction is assumed that hasn't been built in accordance with whatever regulations or codes. So our role in that scenario there is, it's in a hype. My builders, in most cases, my builder hasn't built it properly. I've got a leak coming through. I need this sorted out. It was only built a year ago and I've got these issues. No problem. In a lot of instances, to go back a step, report writing for expert witness reporting can be extremely costly. All right, so that can be $10,000 and upwards.
Wow.
Right, and that's just carrying out inspection, writing the report. You hand that over to legal counsel, and off they go.
Yeah.
Then you've still got court appearances, and you still have my amendments. You've still got Scott schedules to write, joint reports to write, and more often than not, it's all about being part of that mediation process. So if you can catch that earlier, and if there is a dispute, and provide a report that isn't quite as costly as an expert witness report, but still be able to give enough information as to where the shortfalls are against the code, then maybe at that point you can resolve that without going to the costly exercise of running through the court and legal system. And essentially that's why, as a group developing these types of reporting as a preliminary, so in Victoria, the DBDRV, it might be the Department of Fair Trading in New South Wales and so on, right? So if you can resolve that in the preliminary stages and come to some kind of financial agreement or scope agreement, but there are differences between that style of reporting and expert witness reporting, because you still got to provide the rectification process in an expert witness report, whereas the preliminary report, you don't talk about the rectification process.
Right.
You talk about the defect itself,
and
where its shortfalls are. So, but there is a gap between it, hence the cost comparisons. But it is a good stepping stone or pathway or segue.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, mould as well. Mould, we've obviously got the hazmat division, so I learned a little bit about it from that. So prevalence of mould and increase of mould, or people using you for that service, is that coming up?
Yeah, of course it does. I mean, we do a visual inspection, we do pre-purchase and so forth, but specific inspections around mould is usually as a direct result of poor site drainage, poor air circulation, poor construction, failure of building components with water ingress or egress. But the difference is why I would get a building inspector to do an inspection of mould with the right equipment, which we have, and sending it off to labs to get the results. Yes, you can get the results. Again, that's a clinical side of the inspection. You do need to understand the componentry around the construction methodology and water ingress, because you need to hit it from the source to be able to remediate that. So there's no point coming in, wiping down your mould, get rid of your building elements, and then putting it all back in, and then all of a sudden you're getting mould coming back because you haven't hit the source. And that's the differences between a building inspector doing a mould inspection than a mould specialist remediating the mould. And so the first step would be address the issue, find the issue, address the issue, and then get the relevant contractors in to carry out the works, and then remove any moulds and treat that accordingly. Yeah,
that makes sense, because as you said, it could even though it's mould, it could mean, as you said, other issues which couldn't be picked up by someone else besides a building inspector, and then obviously you've got to get to the root cause to actually solve it, or it's going to come back. So
correct.
That makes complete sense. Yeah. And another one as well on here is dilapidation report, which I hear a bit about. So do you want to talk about that? Yeah,
look, it's pretty straightforward. I mean, reports are all about snapshotting time, right? Regardless of what it is. Right now, the building has X. So when you've got a construction site next door, and again, the sites are getting smaller and smaller, and what I mean by that is you're building more boundary to boundary, and vibrations of excavations, shoring up of neighbouring properties. You want to get a snapshot in time to protect both parties, to identify any defects, where they sit, where they lie, and in the event of a dispute, you've got a document that you've got a snapshot of. The interesting part about it is you will go into a property next door to a construction site, and you'll get, my building's fine. And I live in a building as well, but I don't walk in my own home and go, there's a crack coming off here. I don't really care. I want to go home, turn that off, eat my dinner, muck around with the kids, and go to bed, right? So you don't actually see the defects in your own home. When you come in with fresh eyes, they get identified, they get documented, they'll get pocketed over there, and then in the event you need to come back to it, great. So report writing as a general is all about mediation and dispute resolution, because right there you're hitting it at the source, and that's the whole point of a dilapidation report.
It's like an insurance policy in a way, isn't it? You know, you just got that there just in case, and it's just better to get it done.
Yeah. And it's the same with it's not just construction from neighbour to neighbour property. You've also got the instances where you have existing structure insurances for builders, where you'll be carrying out a renovation on a property, and the insurers want to know that if you're putting a second story on, what condition is the lower floor on? Because the builder may damage those areas, and the insurer that's now insuring that building that they're working on want to know where the shortfalls are in the event it was to happen, because the client may turn around and go, well, that was never there.
Yep.
You need to fix this.
Yep.
And they will go, well, actually, no, I don't. The insurer won't cover you for that because it was an existing item within that building. And so it's not just about neighbouring properties, it's also about within that building, whether it's a Torrance title or whether it's a strata complex, whatever the case might be.
And then one as well is asbestos. Now, asbestos gets, every month there seems to be a national story with asbestos or some sort of news story online. So asbestos inspections, do you want to talk about that?
No, look, that's pretty straightforward stuff from where I sit. I mean, you got building material. Well, it's not straightforward, actually. I'll take that back. Because you can have asbestos in underlying products, right? So, and this is where your construction knowledge comes into play. You look at an era of a building, you may see tiles in an old, closed up area that might have been a sunroom, that might have vinyl underneath it. So you still need to use your industry knowledge and periodic build of your homes, understand what materials were built in those times to be able to accurately assess a building prior to construction as to where there may be asbestos within that building.
Yep.
And that can be quite disruptive in gathering those samples. You may need to pull up a floor to get to the base. You may need to pull off a wall lining. There might be wallpaper and you go, hang on a minute, this looks like it was an outdoor area. Outdoor area would have had asbestos linings. Let's take this lining off to get to the secondary lining and so forth. So you do need to have a little bit of knowledge around it to identify it.
Absolutely. And if it gets identified, you guys obviously have people you can bring in, or what's the next step after that?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's like any inspection. You would then recommend what the next stages are. You would bring in the hazmat guys. You might to remediate that, remove it. We would carry out the clearance certificates, and it's always good to have a clearance certificate carried out by a third party,
right?
Rather than being engaged by the company that's being removed, that's removing the items. That way, the homeowner and the builder are staying clear of that independent process.
Absolutely. And pest inspections as well. So generally, do you guys get you to do the building and the pest, or how does that normally work?
Yeah, we do both. I mean, there's different levels of qualifications on that. I mean, personally, I've gone off and got my whole application license so I can actually do treatments, but you don't need to do that. You just need to make sure that you know how to identify them, understand where they come from, where they may migrate from, know where the high risk areas are, identify those. And yet we're only supposed to be looking within the property or within 30 metres. In saying that, that's the bare minimum. Yep. You may want to look across the road in the park. There might be a nest in the park across the road. You might want to put that in information item. So, definitely. It's very important.
Absolutely. Now, I want to talk about then the quality of reporting, because this is something I've learnt from interviewing you guys, that they're not all the same. The reporting between gyms all different parties. So, quality of reporting from you guys. You want to talk about the difference?
Look, I mean, the quality of the reporting essentially comes from two avenues, in my opinion. One is your experience in wherever in construction, in whatever field you've come from. So being into review a property, identify items, know where they're coming from, and then assess from there. The other one is a moral standpoint. There's minimum standards. We inspect on a minimum standard like any other Australian standard or national code. And that's split up into two types of reporting. One would be a vendor report, and the other one would be a purchaser's report. And that's the individual or company that's buying the property. There is quite a large gap between those two styles of reporting. One is tailored to navigate around the legal implications around not reporting on something and tailoring your reports to combat that. And then you've got the other style of reporting that says, oh, hi, here I am, here are the defects. And there's a lot of difference in workload between the two. So a vendor report, you will go through a property, or an inspector will go through a property and do the bare minimum, okay, and report on it accordingly. The thing is, when you're reporting on a purchaser side, it does give you the license to be able to identify everything. The challenges with that, though, is ensuring that your client understands the likelihood of these types of defects. Because the moment they understand the likelihood around these types of defects, so if I know that there's a shower recess that's leaking, and I know that in my experience, 75% of showers in this type of age of a building leaks, there's no point going and searching and chasing that dragon, looking for a house that doesn't have a leaking bathroom, because you'll be looking forever. So it's all about the education process, and that comes from educating your clients on the conversation that you have about your report. So you look at any report, whether it's a vendor report, whether it's a purchaser's report, you're going to look at it and go, I don't want to buy it. The issues are, as a vendor report, you don't get the opportunity, or it's easily accessible to speak to your inspector to discuss the shortfalls. So there are minimalistic items within that report, which then makes it easier to read without having a conversation. You go to the other side, you've got a report that might be 100 plus pages, but when you're having that conversation, all of a sudden, they're understanding that these defects are highly likely to be found or similar in other properties, and it's about understanding the cost implications around that for them to make their educated decision. So it's not about telling them not to buy property, because that's not what we're about. We're about educating them as to where that building sits today compared to others. And that's it.
So that's the service they can expect. So not only getting access to you, but you get that detailed report, plus they can talk with you on the phone about the report, so they can actually understand it and ask questions, which I don't know if other people do that, but it sounds like that'd be very comprehensive.
And that's where, and we're talking about construction earlier, and where the issues lie, because you've got a client that doesn't want to pay but wants top quality. No difference in what we do today. So you get a phone call, hi, but I can get it for $400 off BYB. Yeah, it's great. Good for you, right? The reality is you're going to be getting a report that's minimalistic. You're not going to be able to be speaking to your client. The client won't be speaking to the building inspector, and you're not getting a true understanding as to where it sits.
You need to pay for quality.
Pay for what you get.
Yeah.
It's a big investment. Yes, there's insurances, but that doesn't solve it. It's no different to expert witness reporting. You want to mitigate it now and understand it now, and then make your informed decision. And that's where there's two big gaps in the market, and it comes down to cost, and it comes down to what people want to pay for. So if they do want to pay for it, then they're going to go with the vendor report. They tick a box and then complain about it later, which is fine by me, because then they're calling me into doing an expert witness report, and now I'm making 15, 20, 30 grand instead of the fee to carry out the inspection.
Yeah.
But, that's unfortunate, and that's the way of the world, though.
It sounds pretty crazy. Like, you're paying all this money for this property, and then to get this thing done right, they want to cheap out of it, which doesn't. Yep. And then they complain, or then they're coming back to you and actually spending more money than they would have done at the first point of call. Yeah. Is that the feedback you get from people? I'm sure that's happened with some situations with you, right?
It happens day in, day out.
Right. And I was going to say as well, with the qualifications, because I think this is something that I didn't really know too much about. So, do you want to talk about the qualifications in the industry, and what's your perspective on that?
There aren't any.
Right.
We don't need any.
Okay.
The only state that I know of is Queensland that is regulated in that sense. I think ACT maybe as well, but I definitely know Queensland.
This is important to point out for people about that, because...
Yeah. So, I mean, in most other states and territories in Australia and New Zealand, then there is no regulatory body that manages the qualifications around a building inspector carrying out inspection on any building.
Right.
There are instances where there would be a recommendation, say in the sale of a contract for specific qualifications, but generally no. My mother could go out there and do an inspection and call it a day.
Right.
But in saying that, the group itself, being the GIMS group, the our division does have a minimum certificate for or a structural engineer and certain years experience within the industry in order to get the franchise to carry out the inspections. Generally speaking out there, it's not the case. And the good part about our group is you get such a vast variety of backgrounds and qualifications that we do get to lean on each other and each other's experiences to get a holistic view on a property, because I might do something and not come across a certain specific material type that's being constructed, and I can make a phone call, go, yep, no worries, thanks very much, and then document it from there without going to, chat GTPs and so forth. I mean, I just don't report like that, but without doing that and getting real life experience. Yeah,
because I think it's quite a concern, isn't it, when you hear that people can just call themselves a building inspector and they don't even have, maybe do a 2-day course or whatever they're going to do, and they can start doing reports. And also think people should know that when they use you, you're the actual business owner, where some other companies might be sending an employee out, right? And I think there's a difference in care factor between employee and business owner, and that's just a fact.
Yeah, definitely. We are all individual business owners, right? And we've all got our own reputations with the brand overall. But yeah, definitely, that's the differences between. And the other parties, I mean, the challenges are unregulated chat GPTs of the world, and now everybody can write a half decent report. The problem is, how do you deliver that report? And this is where you get another gap in the industry, where you're not going to want to take that phone call to speak to someone when you've chat GPT, what you call it, right? A report, but you don't want to explain it because you don't actually know what you've written.
Yes.
Right, and that's where there's a big difference in the market. And what you pay for.
Absolutely. And I was going to say as well, the challenges in the market at the moment that you see. What are some of the challenges? I think
we've sort of covered up a lot of those, and that is the expectation and managing the expectations around the report and what you get out of it. I mean, clearly that's what you should be doing with anything that you do in life. It's an expectation. This is what you're going to get. This is how much it's going to cost. Here's an example of what you're going to get. Here's a previous thing. So I think it's around. One, the education process around what you're going to receive and what they're going to pay for. But again, it does stem, like anything, what someone is willing to pay and to what you're going to get, and they're the challenges. So when you've got people that don't want to pay, and you've got an industry that's happy to accommodate that, then you're forever trying to justify your rate to your service. And that's probably the biggest challenge that you have out there. And being unregulated, well, then you've got bigger problems.
And where do you see over the next 5 years? Like, do you think you're going to be busier, I guess, because there's obviously going to be a lot more building done and people might be cutting corners because of pressure, all that sort of stuff? What do you think the next 5 years is going to hold for your industry?
I don't think it'll change. Right. I think that it may increase the quantity of disputes out there. We are going through the COVID period when there was price hikes and people were stuck in a contract, fixed price contract. They would have had no option but to execute their projects in a form that they may not have already done or already completed, right? And that is also on the back of clients not wanting to contribute to that, so they've been left with no option. And then on the back of that, with the increases, and they've gone up 35% in the last 4 years, the construction costs, but contracts aren't going up 45%. So where are the shortfalls going to be? And that is in the construction process, which means that style of reporting may increase, but then the other style of reporting will decrease.
Right.
So,
and what should then
balance out?
And what should the average punter then know about? Like, say they want to. Obviously, we want them. They should be getting an inspection involved at the thing. But what, as a former builder, what are some things they should look at when trying to engage a builder? What would you sort of recommend to them?
Well, the first thing I'd recommend is getting your staged inspections carried out at the bare minimum, because what that does, it keeps the builder honest into what they're doing, and it's not about honest. It keeps them true to themselves. It's not about they intentionally go out and do something incorrect. But when they know that there's a shadow over there about to walk in the door, they'll think twice about what they're doing.
Yeah.
Right. The second part is, even though we're the client's advocate, not the builder's advocate, you can still work as a mediator between the two. And I find that happens quite regularly with myself, because then the builder may go, well, mate, what else am I supposed to do? It's like, well, actually, there's a couple of options, not telling you how to do your stuff, but you could do X, Y, and Z. One of those three will work. You've got to pass that through your certifier, make sure that you can provide an alternate solution for whatever you need to do in whatever circumstance. But then all of a sudden, you're assisting them in the construction rather than being that thorn in the side. So to answer your question, engage a building inspector to, at the bare minimum, carry out their staged inspections in order to keep that conduit of communication at critical path to ensure that the construction is being carried out right, the client's happy, and the builder actually has someone else they can actually pick up the phone to too. Yeah,
that's a good point. And how do you go with the relationships with builders? Because there's obviously a lot of awareness on the industry now. There's always seems to be people trying to catch out builders with a current affair or other YouTube channels and stuff like that. So how the relationship go with you guys with builders?
Generally speaking, I'd say that it's pretty good.
Yeah.
The most volume builders encourage it. It gives them another level of
protection.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. It's probably more the architectural builders that get a bit personal.
Right.
I mean, I know that. I know that if I'm sitting there building a property and I'm building, say, a $5 million home, and I've got this clown walking in going, mate, I'm going, I don't think so, I don't need you, you know. But I do think that that's probably where you get the most pushback.
Yeah.
But your volume builders, they encourage it. They want a document that says, oh yeah, mate, go fix this. And like I was saying earlier, even when you're going to your development stage, the developers want that, right? So then they're going, well, and it actually, one particular developer uses my services in that scenario just for his dispute resolution with his trades.
Right.
Because he will say, can you come in and check this particular portion of this project? So you can go to that contract and go, mate, I love your work, but here's where your shortfalls are by the code. Could you just touch them up for me? And that is something I wish I did as a builder. Instead of arguing, mate, I just don't like it. So I don't like it because of. And then you've got a document that shows that. And that's where your staged inspections are extremely important, because it's actually talking about a specific code for that specific item, where its shortfalls are, and there's no real disputing it, right? So they generally do encourage it, is my answer to your question.
Yeah. Also save a lot of people time as well. If a developer can just use you, it saves a lot of time and the angst of doing that as well.
Yep.
Now, being a part of the gym's system for a while, what's your sort of feedback on it? How's it been?
We're still recording?
Yeah, still recording.
Yeah. All right.
It's not a positive laugh. Maybe, I don't know.
Ask me the question again, buy me some more time.
But how's it been a part of the gym system overall? So
look, it's been good. Yeah. It's been good to have all different walks of life next to you to be able to lean on. The system itself works. Like the gym's group system works really well, because you're not accountable just upstream, you're accountable downstream and upstream. So franchisors are accountable to us, we're accountable to them, divisions accountable to the group's accountable to the division. So when you've got a structure like that, it does make everyone work in the right format, both up and down the line.
Yep. Well, then how'd you go from being, because you were your own business owner for so long, and you come into a franchise system and there's rules in place, right? So how'd you go from that independent?
Well, firstly, I struggled putting the shirt on, because it wasn't my name on the shirt.
And that's the thing that people like. We have a lot of independents who come in, they go, "It's not my brand." But how did you go?
But now I get called Jim and I answer to it. Yeah, I'm like whatever. It was a tough transition.
Yeah.
In saying that, I was extremely procedural, process-based individual in my company.
Yeah.
In anything that I ran. So to walk into a procedural-based system, bring it on, right? Because that's what keeps it true. So, but like actually physically walking around with someone else's logo, it was tough. But now it's like, this is what we're a part of. And when you're a part of that, it makes you a bit more passionate about the people that are next to you, which is why you do what you do.
And it sounds like it's probably an obvious question, but how's your stress levels or how's your lifestyle now? You mentioned family before.
I still go home and kick the dog. But
you don't do that, but that's all right. Everyone doesn't understand sarcasm.
No, I've got two.
You got two.
Yeah.
Right.
But stress levels, nowhere near it. Love and life. It's good.
Yeah.
Should have done it years ago.
Yeah, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But in saying that, if I did it years ago, you wouldn't have the knowledge of what you got. But Should have done it years ago.
And you have to say what you're making, but income-wise, happy with what you're doing?
Yep.
And we'll leave it at that. Just leave it at that. All right, and then we'll go into then. I was going to ask you then about the your week. What does an average week look like? Is there do you sort of average a number of inspections, or can it just be different, or how booked are you out, or how's an average week?
I don't work on a number of inspections. I work on value.
Right.
Okay, because we talked about earlier quality of work. So when you've got a quality of work, you get a quality of revenue. So I do work on quality, not the quantity. In saying that, I do try and schedule a 4-day week, which turns to 6 very quick. It does. I do. I schedule a 4-day week, and whatever happens in the other ones, it happens. And usually it just rolls into a 5 and 6 day week. And
what do you think, from your experience as looking into it now, where does the building industry need to change? Like, what needs to happen moving forward? I'm sure there's a lot of different things. What do you think should happen?
It's all about the economy. I mean, we've already spoken about this.
Yeah.
It's about people understanding what they get, what they pay for. And everybody talks about that. They go, oh, yeah, you get what you pay for. But when it comes to paying, no one wants to pay for it. So it's about putting regulations in place, maybe mandating certain things, maybe increasing the minimum standard of inspections, and educating the public that minimum standards are exactly that. The minimum standard you should be getting. So you shouldn't be getting other inspectors going, mate, you don't have to do that. No, well, mate, I do. It's my standard. Right? So I think moving forward, I believe that the standard should probably increase to help protect
consumers,
consumers, and have inspectors be a bit more accountable for their minimalistic costs.
Absolutely. And is there any customer stories from over the years that stand out to you? Like any jobs or anything like that? I'm sure there's a few.
Look, there's plenty, but look, the reality is this: the message here is you just got to pay. You got to pay for what you got to pay for the right service, right? And you don't want to get to those stories. You don't want to get to the stories where you've got balconies leaking, defects in place that you haven't inspected properly. It's just, you don't want to get to that point. So instead of talking about where your biggest issues have been, you want to make sure that you don't get to those places.
Yeah, so get it done right up front. Don't keep out on it. That's the main thing as well. Now, is there anything I should have asked you which I didn't ask you today, Peter?
No, I think you've gone through your list pretty well there.
No, you gave me some notes, which is great. I've got some pre-production notes, which I never get from people, so I was really happy. I've learned a lot actually today listening to you. It's fantastic as well.
Tell everybody that.
But I sort of end on the point. People need to understand that when you engage a gym's franchisee, sometimes people might go, it's the mowing guy rocking up to do building inspection, whatever it is. Home of the year in Australia, apartment of the year in Australia, successful building company, and you get access to Peter for a fraction of the cost, in your business. And I think it's to do your decision. So it's an absolutely amazing thing we get off. And just again, you just mentioned Toorak. Where else is your other territory? What areas do you service?
Well, I've got 2 territories, Melbourne and Toorak, which is quite a good area.
Quite a nice area, yes. Yeah. Not bad. Nice clients there. What's the most expensive home you've actually then? I'll end on this. What's the most expensive home you've worked on?
8 million.
Right.
In Melbourne was 8 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
A lot of money.
So was the inspection.
Average house price in Sydney though, it's around 8 million though, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but you're still, funny part, you're still getting less per inspection, which is ridiculous. But anyway, we'll talk about that.
It's not commission based.
Yeah.
Well, Peter, thank you very much for your time today. We appreciate it. And guys, make sure you subscribe if you need a Jim's Building Inspection. It's 131546 or Gyms.net. And as I'll read out this once again, experts like Peter we have in this Gyms group, so please make sure you think gyms next time. All right, thanks for your time today, Peter.
Cheers. Thanks.
Thank you.